Hello, my friends. I'm the Wolfman, Dale Wolfley, and I'm coming to you from the second layer of the Wolf's Den. Hope you're all doing great, man, and you're ready for the Kansas JayHawks this weekend. They say rock chalk. Who? No, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to say rock chalk. Who? Get out of here. Who? That's who you are. Yeah, man. The Mountaineers are looking to go 2-1 in the Big 12 and 3-1 overall thus far in the season for their fourth game of the year. I feel like the team is really in a good spot right now, and they're gelling in all areas of the team and preparation. So I'm excited. I want to see what they do against the Jayhawks. Again, I'm not going to sit there and say the Jayhawks are great. We all know they are not. But this is a game for me, in the very least, is to see where the Mountaineers are, and it's about them. How are they going to keep developing their running game? How are they going to develop the passing game and the explosive plays that Coach Brown wants to see? Is the defense going to keep continuing to develop? Are they going to keep finding out the best way that they can play the defense around the new skills of middle linebacker Tony Fields and seeing how he fits into that defense? You know, there's so many things going on, and then you look at the special teams and you put the importance on that, and I really see a team growing here, so it's cool. Now, before we get started and break down the Kansas Jayhawks, and then talk a little bit about the Mountaineers and individual play as well, I want you to see right here. This is everything that I am going to look at. There, I don't know if you can see all this here coming out. Look at all these. Yeah, I mean, it is like my head sometimes swims, you know, and I look up here and I see Coach Brown. I see Huggy Bear, Craig Darby from Little General Stores. Whew, well, I tell you what, sometimes, you know, our conversations can get a little bit involved there. And, you know, I don't even win some of those conversations, and you would understand the deal. But when I look at this and I think about where this team is at right now, I see total growth. I'm very excited about what's happening. So I'm going to give you a couple stats. Now, usually I leave all the stats for the signal caller, Jed Drenning, because he's the master of it. But once in a while, I get a little bit of fever when I see something that really catches my eye. And this is a couple stats I want to give you, provided by Mike Montoral, WVU's director of football communication. And the first one I want to start out with is this, and it's really cool. It's that Big Red, Mike Montoral, or we call him Monty, came up with these notes that WVU is the only Power 5 school in the nation to rank in the top 20 in rushing defense at 102 yards, passing defense at 166, total defense 268, scoring defense 19 points per game, and red zone defense 60%. That's all top 20. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper, you can look at the sacks number. Is that WVU has 11. That puts them at 9th in the country for total sacks. They're 14th in the country for TFLs. That's tackles for loss. And they're 14th in the country for opponents' third down conversion rates, meaning is that they're 29%, so that opposing teams are only 29% successful on third downs. That's pretty darn good. And you got to love the way the defense is playing. Are they going to continue? Well, that's what's so exciting about this week. And we had the bye week and they worked on what they needed to work on to get better and continue what they're doing well. And against the Kansas Jayhawks is a perfect time to see, hey, are they progressing? And that's why I'm really excited. Forget about the Jayhawks. Forget about the record. It doesn't matter. Coastal Carolina. It doesn't matter. What matters is the Mountaineers. And that truly is the case. And here's another cool stat for you is that against Texas teams, I pulled this out of the hat. I don't even know. It just caught my eye once again. But it is that the Mountaineers are, wait, did I get this right? They're 22-14. So they're 22-14 against the Big 12 teams from Texas. And that's pretty good. And they lead each series. So if you think about Texas, they're 5-4. Baylor, they're 6-3. This is all time, by the way, all time. But the last 8 years, right? They're playing them. So you got Baylor, and then you got Texas Tech, they're 6-3. TCU, they're 5-4. So the Mountaineers, they own Texas, right? Howdy, partners. How you doing? Yeah, glad we're in the Big 12. And then, you know, I did a tweet in that, and of course, you always got people always like, well, what about Oklahoma? You know, and Oklahoma State, we don't own Oklahoma. No, we don't. Not since joining the Big 12 by any means, as they have dominated. Oklahoma is still undefeated since joining the Big 12 with the Mountaineers, and Oklahoma State Mountaineers are 4-8. But I want to just give you one other thing. Well, you say that whole thing is that Oklahoma, since joining the Big 12 from 2012 to 2019, not including anything this year, they have 87 victories and 20 losses. 6 of those 20 losses, came in bowl games or playoffs. Okay, so they're 87 victories. Oklahoma State, 70 victories, 34 losses in that same time frame. About 3 10-winning seasons. That's pretty impressive. So that's a total of 157 victories and 54 losses, including all bowl games and any extra games that they played, championship games that they played in. A lot of teams have lost to Oklahoma. So that's all I'm going to say in defense. I'm not making excuses. Lord knows we need to go beat the Sooners, and let's do it this year. Missed our chance against Oklahoma State. Who knows? Things get crazy enough in 2020. We might see them down the road. But let's go ahead and first break into the Kansas JayHawks. Coached by Les Miles. I'm not sure if he's even going to make the trip because we all know, God bless him, that he came down with the COVID virus. And I think he's doing well. I do believe he's going to make the trip, but I'm not positive about that. So with that being said, he's going to have an interim coach. And when I look at this Kansas JayHawks, they just are a team. They played their first game. They played 14 true freshmen. It's a young team. They are what they are. They're the Kansas JayHawks. And in football, they're not there yet at the level of any other Big 12 team. Really not even that close. Now, they did battle hard against Baylor. In Oklahoma State, they tried, but they just right now are not there. The quarterback, they've been through 3 quarterbacks. I mean, what kind of offense are you going to really have after 3 games and you've been through 3 quarterbacks injury-wise and having a true freshman start and then going to his junior college quarterback today, Kendrick Miles. Well, Kendrick Miles is 23-46 for 243 yards. He has 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. He's, like I said, he's a junior college guy, first year out of junior college. And you have to look at it. He's got the weapons. He's got the offensive line, but they're just not clicking. He's got his receivers, and he's got some talent there as well. There is talent, but they're not gelling right now. Again, 3 quarterbacks. I can hardly blame them, and I certainly understand. But Kendrick Miles is going to be playing there, and he's got a decent arm. Again, he doesn't have a ton of experience, and hopefully having the Mountaineers, the first initial rush of the Mountaineers with 20% capacity will come in and provide some juice for the Mountaineers and a little bit of frustration for the Kansas JayHawks. Kendrick Miles, once again, I see him, he's number 17. He's got a decent arm. I don't think he's totally comprehended the offense completely, but he's got some backup players behind him, not backup, but supporting role players. And Puka Williams, they call it Puka Magic. And he has over 2,300 rushing yards in 2 years, freshman and sophomore. It's really quite an incredible story of Puka. He actually cut off his toes and partially his foot when he was mowing the lawn as a youngster. And he doesn't really talk about it very much, but how can he be such a great running back and be missing that support of his foot? I think that's amazing, and I think the world of him for exceeding at the level he has in all-purpose yards. I mean, he rocks and rolls. He is there. He's a dangerous threat. He can go to the house at any time. And if you look at the Wolf's-Den on the Neil Brown television show, I break that down. I show you what Puka could do, Williams, and of course, when you look also at the other running backs, you're going to see Velton Gardner, who's a sophomore. He's number 0. Okay, Puka's 1, sorry. Velton Gardner's 0. And then you have number 20, who is a freshman. I'm not recalling his name, but he's got a lot of playing time against Oklahoma State. And so Oklahoma is rushing for about 149 yards per game. You see they're passing for about 146, so about somewhere around 296 yards of total offense. They scored 4 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. but the 2 passing touchdowns were by Miles Kendrick, quarterback. Uh, so when you see that, and they have wide receivers, they got Parchment, they got Robinson, and they got Lassiter, the new guy. The last 2 years, Parchment and Robinson have combined for a total of 15 touchdowns. So they do have striking ability. They do have the talent. I believe that they don't have the best at wide receivers, but I do believe that they're not bad. And when you look at the offensive line, they got 3 seniors, a junior, and a sophomore. The seniors all have 2 to 3 letters. I think 3 letters, all 3 of them. And the junior has at least 2 letters. So they're big guys. They're 6'5", you know, offensive line. They like to do the counters. They like to do the zones, you know, outside zone, inside zone. You know, they really will do it all. And, you know, again, they like to pull a little bit with the guards and do some power stuff as well and let Puka go ahead and run. So I guess when I look at the offense here, they're averaging, you know, 14 points per game, you know, not scoring a whole bunch of points. So I think our defense, what they have to do is say, do we want to play down at Kansas JayHawks level, or do we want to go ahead and play to the Mountaineers level and keep continuing the climb to get better? And I think that's the mindset that they have to set in. And if you have that mindset set in, then you will not let them slip up on and go ahead and get behind you and take them lightly. Because if you're going to be ready to play defensively, you're going to be ready to play. It doesn't matter. And who you play, because you're holding yourself to a standard. That's where you see mature teams are mature. And that's the difference, I think, that you'll find. You know, when you go ahead and you put that over to the defensive side, again, I'm seeing 2 safeties. One is Devon Ferguson. He's a junior. He's second on the team in tackles. And the guy who's first in the tackles is Kenny Logan. He's a sophomore. Safety is number 1. Devon is number 7. So if you see him out there, they're making most of the tackles. Now, they are a cover 4 team, meaning that they're going to show 2 high safeties. And that can be cover 2, but cover 4, cover 6, which is quarter, a half. It means, I won't even get into that. Let's get into the weeds for you. But they are basically 2 safeties high most of the time. But they will disguise it and roll into a 3, cover 3, a 3 weak. Okay, so you'll kick it at weak, so that they will do some disguising there for Jared Deggy, the Mountaineers quarterback. We'll definitely have to discern, but they're not a real big blitzing team. In short yard situations, you'll see them blitz and then do a little bit of zero. You know, it's funny because when I think of Coach Brown this week in his comments, he says that, you know, he wants to really work on the long game, the explosion game, the explosive game, right? Getting some longer pass plays out there and some running plays as well. But I'm thinking the passing play is when you see that Kansas tendencies are in the short yards, if you get like a 2nd and 2, 3rd and 1, where you're in a field position where you might go for it on 4th down. Of course, you know, last game against Baylor, the Mountaineers were 100% for 3 for 3 on 4th down. So he's not afraid to gamble, Coach Brown. He's not afraid to gamble. But I'm thinking 3rd and 1, good field position, you might see him go up top and go one-on-one. Let our receivers go, because I think our receivers can get separation from these cornerbacks and be able to make some big plays. That's just me, but I know what Coach Brown is thinking about how he wants the offense to go. And, you know, what I'm seeing from the Kansas JayHawks defense, you know, anytime that you see that your 2 safeties, and that's the Kansas JayHawks, are leading in tackles, it's probably not a great sign, being that your linebackers aren't up there in tackles, or they are 3rd and 4th. But really, it comes down to is these safeties are probably making tackles 5 or plus more yards from the line of scrimmage, the original line of scrimmage. So when you're doing that, because they are giving up 5 yards per rush as a defensive unit, and I think that's really stems the play right off the bat, is that if you can't stop the run, even in the Big 12, if you can't stop the run, it's going to be very difficult for your defense to make anything of the day and give your offense a chance to outscore points and win. But I think when it's all said and done, is you're going to see the Mountaineers are going to try to keep that rushing going. What do I mean by that, the rushing? Well, let's get into this a little bit. We know the problems of the offensive line last year. But again, this is year 2, right? So in year 2, is things are starting to come together a little bit better, even though they've been juggling a couple offensive linemen around because of certain situations, whether one being not ready to go, ill, or one, did not have a good game. Another one came in. It doesn't matter. What I'm seeing here is that right now, WVU is averaging 177 rushing yards per game. That puts them at 4th in the Big 12 right now, 177. Letty Brown is averaging over 100 yards. Again, I think it's 100.6 points or 106.7, something to that effect per game. He is rushing. And, you have Alex Sinkfeld, who's averaging about 63 yards. And hey, look out for Alec, because I think that Coach Brown, he said it in his commentary this past week that he told Alec, he said, we didn't use you enough in the Baylor game, and we need to get you more, because he's averaging about 6.7 yards per rush. So we got Letty at 5, Alec at 6.7. Obviously, those guys are doing well, and the rushing game is getting better. I want to say at this point, after after 4 or 3 games, Mike Brown is playing the best football. That's the right guard of the Mountaineers, playing the best football I've seen him play. I love the fact that Chase was put over the senior center. The center going to be center from this point on, we think. But he was playing right guard and tackle before Baylor. Gamitter goes down. Chase gets moved to center. Doesn't miss a beat. You know what? I think that was his best game I've ever seen him play. Physical, too. Physical. Then you take a look at Zach Frazier, who's going to play center. Now he's playing left guard. By the way, he's a true freshman playing at a super extraordinary level. I mean, I'm starting to think it's freakish. Okay, folks? I'm going to say it. Zach Frazier from Fairmount. He's a true freshman. He's playing at a mature level, a physical level that belies that the fact that he's a true freshman. He should be a junior playing it like that, and what he's doing. He's mentally there. He's mentally aware. He's playing center. I mean, listen, I played a few games as a redshirt freshman, started and played in every game, but I didn't have to play the whole game. Zach did, and that means a lot. When you could get in 30 reps, it's not as much pressure as going in for 75, 80 reps. There's a big difference, and I'm absolutely amazed as a freshman watching him and what he's doing, and I'm thinking this is going to be a great one. But we also got left tackle Brandon Yates came out. He's a redshirt freshman now. He's not a true freshman as Zach, but he's a redshirt freshman, and I think he had a really good game. He had a quality, solid game. He didn't hurt you. He didn't give up big sacks. He was there. He was solid. He's only going to get better. Can he possibly go a little up and down? Sure. I mean, that's a redshirt freshman, but I think overall you're seeing some guys that are really solidifying themselves. And then you got Junior Uzabu, who actually lost his starting job to Brandon Yates, but I think you're going to see him come back because he had a strong camp, and I think he just had a kind of a bad game against Oklahoma State. But then again, a lot of guys have trouble with Oklahoma State, so don't count him out. He's a redshirt sophomore, great future for the Mountaineers. Excuse me. So when I look at that, the rushing, Letty Brown averaging 5 yards, Alex Sinkfeld averaging 6.7 yards per carry. I think you're going to see the Mountaineers really trying to go ahead against this team. On defensively, the Kansas JayHawks are giving up 227 yards per game in the rushing department. You got to go after that. If you're trying to get more continuity, making 5 parts, tackle to tackle, work as one, which is huge, you really want to see them go after running the ball this week against the JayHawks. Now, I want to get to another part, and that is the tight ends, because you got Michael O'Loughlin, the tight end, and then you have TJ Banks, the tight end. And they're really developing well. If you look at the last play against Baylor in the double overtime, and you saw Michael O'Loughlin come in there and just push down the whole left side of the whole right side of the Baylor front, the left side of the Mountaineers front, along with Brandon Yates, along with Zach Frazier, along with Chase Barrett, Mike Brown on the right side. And then you got Hughes at the right tackle on the other side. The offensive line came off as a unit, did a great job on that rushing touchdown for victory. But Michael Laughlin is really developing into a complete tight end. Now, we all knew what he could do as a wide receiver. He came in at 195 pounds. He was recruited at, he played wide receiver in high school. He was a skinny kid, but now he's thick. Now he's big. Where TJ Banks was always kind of big anyways, at least a bigger style type cat. O'Laughlin had to develop into this, and he had to put his hand down, what I say, hand down in the dirt. Now that's just an expression. Obviously they don't play much on dirt anymore. But meaning that he has to get a 3-point stance and have a offensive lineman mentality. And if you didn't see that in the last play, man, my goodness, that's something else. I love it. I see it. TJ Banks, I said Oklahoma State. I thought he had some really nice blocks while he was in there in that game as well. So when I look at that tight end spot, it's starting to solidify. I think Travis Trickett's doing a great job. He's also got the slot receivers. Look at Winston Wright Jr. Woo, hoo, hoo, hoo. TJ Simmons against Oklahoma State made some big plays. So I think that tight end to slot range is really doing some good things for the Mountaineers, and will be counted on as we continue into this Big 12, the rest of this Big 12 season. So once again, now Jared Deggy, let's take a look at him. If I look at the stats here, big red, I'm going to see a quarterback. Deggy he's ranked number 10 nationally in completions. He's got 23 per game. He's 16 in percentage. That's 66%. He's 26 in passing yards per game. So that's 241 yards. So he's up there in the top 20 to 30 range. And again, he's doing a fine job. Now, what we want to see him do more, I think, and what Coach Brown, I believe, wants to do more, is to be able to hit those downfield wide receivers. I think that you have Bryce Ford Wheaton down there. He has 8 catches on the season. He's doing a good job. Obviously, Sam James. I want to see Sam James be more consistent and catching the ball, but he's getting a lot of balls thrown at him as well, and he has a lot of pressure put on him through those. I said at the beginning of the season, who's going to have a breakout this year? For the wide receivers, I said it's going to be Winston Wright Jr. And I'm going to keep holding on to that because obviously Oklahoma State, he had the 70-yard touchdown when he went across that zero coverage, no high safety there, and just blew out the safety away. And I think that they're going to do a lot of, he can go across the middle for intermediate routes. He can do a drag for, just a release, or he can go vertical from the slot. And I think you're going to see some of that down the road. And so I'm seeing the offense. I really believe that they're going to come around here. They keep getting better. I'm going to tell you something. I don't talk much about freshmen. I'm talking a lot about Zach Frazier, which I'm trying to keep tempered and down. But, the wide receiver, Reese, I'm telling you, from Kentucky, right from Coach Brown's, that kid catches all kinds of balls. He's a slot receiver. It's true. It's Reese Smith at Danville, I believe it is, Kentucky. I think he had a remarkable camp. John Antonic was watching camp, and he said all he does is catch balls. Well, all he does is catch balls. Saw very few drop balls in the fall camp this season. So the offense, I think, is clicking. I think they're going to try to run. I think they're going to take their shots when they can. I think they have an opportunity. Again, Kansas is cover 4, cover 2, cover 6. I think maybe a little bit 1 free when they do bring some blitzing and a little bit of 0 in short yardage situations. Defensively about the Mountaineers, I think, what can I say? I mean, I read you the stats that they're in. They're playing very, very well. I didn't like what they gave up in rushing yards against Oklahoma State, but they certainly made up for it against Baylor, right? 27 yards. And people say, well, you got to count the quarterback sacks into that. Well, yeah, but they do the same against us. So, I mean, it all equals out. I mean, it's the same thing. It's not a stat I like. I would rather have it so it went against the passing game than the rushing. But it is what it is at this point. Those are the rules. So when you look at our defense here, the play, what do you got to start with? You got to start with Darius Stills, right? He had 2.5 sacks against Charlie Brewer. You know, I wonder if he sat there and said, "Hey, Charlie, how you been since last year, man?" I don't know. Charlie's probably not happy to talk to him, but for some reason, Darius has really come out and done a great job against a quarterback that's very polished. I mean, Charlie Brewer was in the Big 12 championship game, but just a half year ago, right? So obviously he's a very polished quarterback, number 3 in all time in Baylor passing, not too shabby, behind Bryce Petty and RG3. Okay, so the Mountaineers really did a nice job. Altogether as a defense, Darius Dante did some pressure stuff, nice. I really like how the defensive ends. Jared Bartlett, the freshman, is starting to play well. I like what he was doing on some of the bandit stuff where he's rushing on the outside. And, you know, Jeffrey Puller, the defensive end, he's a senior. You know, if I would have told you about Jeffrey a few years ago, it wouldn't have been what I'd say about him right now. I wasn't sure about Jeffrey, about his work ethic as a youngster. This is a youngster. And it probably wasn't fair of me to judge him for that because he's a youngster. But what I've seen from him come and what he's done with his body and his work ethic now, he is a Mountaineer. And I'm really proud of him. And I wish I know him to a certain degree. And I think he's really done a tremendous job in stepping up and becoming a solid defensive end. And again, you have to look at, you know, the other defensive linemen that you have there and who's going to step out. I talked about Zach Frazier as a true freshman. Well, Akeem Mesidor, he has 2 sacks on the season, getting a lot of playing time. So you have a freshman offensive lineman, which is amazing to me. Freshman defensive lineman. I mean, and not only freshmen getting minutes, making impacts, making sacks, making tackles. And I think that's really what's so impressive about those two. And I love talking about them because they're such a great young men. Okay, they're young men. I'm not going to call them teenagers. I'm not going to call them boys. They're young men, and they're growing into it, and they're going to be special and have special Mountaineer careers. You know, of course, staying healthy, all that together. So I'm very excited about a defense line. I still think that's the strong suit of this defense, but you have to be like, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised because Tony Fields came about, you know, at least 10 days into camp. So he wasn't even here making this kind of impact. He leads the team with 29 tackles. Gosh, he's got an interception. He's got a big pass breakup when it was in the red zone against Baylor. I mean, he's just all over the field. He can run sideline to sideline. This cat's going to be an NFL player. He knows what's going on. And I think what you're seeing here is that you're seeing is how is this defense fitting in with Tony Fields? Because he is not used to this type of defense. Now, when he was at Arizona, you know, he was in, I believe, I think he was in the 3-3 stack. So we all know what that is. But when he was there, he had over 100 plus tackles each and every season. The 3 seasons he was there. That's a lot of tackles, man. And you can see him with 29 now leading. He's got a sack, a pick, pass breakup. He's making tackles. He's making TFLs. He's making sacks. And he's making PBUs, pass breakups, and he's making picks. That's saying a lot in 3 games, right? 3 games. He didn't even start the first game. So when you break that down, you look at what he is. He's sideline to sideline. He's all over. A little bit infectious, I think. When you take a look at that front line, and you got Darius leading the way, that whole defensive line, and now you got Tony Fields. Well, you know, and then you got big old Josh Chandler Semedo right there at the wheel pad. I mean, he's been normally the Mr. You know, high tackler for the games, but you know, it's Tony Fields comes along. So now you got really 2 solid linebackers going there, and you got Tonk playing at Bandit as well, who's doing a fine job. And then let's move back to our secondary and see what's going on. And you know, I was talking to Coach Brown, and he said that Tyke Smith was really stepping up as a leader on the field and off. Hey, big interception there in the second overtime from Charlie Brewer to to provide the opportunity for the Mountaineers and Lenny Brown to go in there and score a touchdown and win the game. So you got to be fired up about Tyke. I really like him. I like the way he plays. He's physical. He showed his moxie last year as a true freshman, being put in a lot of situations. And then you go ahead and you look at the other safeties, and Sean Mahone, who's just outstanding, and he's the safety who's the anchor back there. And how about a die, man, right? I mean, he comes in another die. Like, yeah, we keep getting them. I love them. Give me more, right? Okay, Jamal. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But a die, man, I'll tell you, he's coming in there and he's playing a physical play. He has an interception. He's fourth on the team, I believe, in tackles. Every time he hits you, I've almost had him up for like 2 or 3 big hits of the week. I've had him up for 1. I probably could have had 2 or another 2 since then as well. He's just a very physical player. Really like what he's doing. And then you have the Treshaun Miller, who's in there. He's doing a good job. You know, I never thought that interference was on him. I thought that was a bad call. But regardless, I see good things with the secondary. We talked to safeties coach Dante Wright, and he's been nothing but saying, hey, the secondary is gelling. Like Troy Fortune, kid's got brass guts, man. I'll tell you what, you know what I'm saying? He's tough. Put him on an island. You know, he had to go against some good players and extremely good players. He had Wallace from Oklahoma State, and he just did a fair job. And I really like where this defense is going. They have a couple other secondary guys that fill in and are doing a fine job. So defensively, offensively, making progress. The kickoff team, the punt team, doing extremely well, keeping the averages low. I love the way they just haul down there. They obviously take it very important. And, you know, the signal caller came out with a great point at the Baylor game. We were doing the pregame. And the signal caller came out and said that when they had a special teams meeting before the game, the night before the game, that each coach had their own special teams and each one went down the line and we're talking. And Coach Brown was over it all, and he would interject with some seriously, you know, good points and coaching points that he wants. But he said that each coach, this is the signal caller saying this, said that each coach was almost competing with their guys against the other coaches in their special teams. So we always go back to how does Coach Brown always start off his competing process? Well, it's about every day before practice, they do some type of competition. You get the blood boiling, but it's always about competing. Compete. You compete for that first position. You compete for that starting offensive line. You compete for that starting running back. You compete for that starting linebacker, that starting safety. Well, it doesn't matter, defensive line. You compete. You compete for that starting position on kickoff return. You compete for that starting position on punt. Let's compete, compete, compete. Well, even the coaches are competing in these meetings and trying to do a great job in coaching, but that makes you better. You know what the old saying is, right? Iron sharpens iron, baby. Iron sharpens iron. Well, if they're competing against each other, then they're giving their best to the kids, right? That's what it is. And getting the most out of them. And that's why I think that they take the special teams so serious. I keep harping, special teams, special teams, special teams. They're going to win special teams, the Mountaineers. They're going to trust the climb and win special teams. Kansas JayHawks this week. You know, fans for the first time in 2020 this week. Come on in. Come on in. Roll in. Be loud, man. Be strong. Mountaineers have a chance to go 2-1 in the Big 12. Roll the JayHawks. Roll them. Rock, chalk, who? No. This is about the Mountaineers, man. About the Mountaineers going out and winning, playing in all 3 phases of the game to the core. What did Coach say? He wants a gritty team. He wants a nasty team. He wants a team that's going to go out there and fight, and a team that is top in physicality against that opponent at that time on that day. That day is today. Let's go, Mountaineers. Boom!